You ever hear of yin yang? For every action, there's a reaction. There's some really good parts about Coach Riley's offense, and there's some weaknesses. But the bigger question is, how does it affect USC's defense? Let's talk about that on this episode of Locked On USC.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holton, and thank you. Thanks again for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're watching this show on YouTube, wherever you want to download this podcast, this show is always free. This show always appreciates your support. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Yin and Yang. It's an ancient Chinese philosophy. It describes how what would seem like opposite forces are actually interconnected. They're interdependent on each other. And I'm going to kind of tie that into football. Basically, it represents the idea that duality exists, okay? But it's not a conflict, but it's a balance. It's a dynamic balance. And how do you make it work together? In this case, Coach Riley's offense is the yin to Coach D'Anton Lynn's defensive yang. How's that? Okay? So I'd ask the question, what do you like most about Coach Riley's offense? I think there's three main points that it's built on. And that's what everybody likes. And what's made him so successful as an offensive minded, as a play caller as well as a head coach. Number one, his offense is known for being really innovative with the passing game. It uses some really cool, wide receiver route, combinations. The offense itself, it's kind of described as it's built on a sophisticated passing attack. It incorporates, as I mentioned, creative route concepts, route trees, different versions of. You can run the slant a variety of different ways, right? You have different types of in and out meshes that will cause havoc for opposing defenses. It creates confusion in the secondary. These are the types of plays. Again, basically they're designed, they're going to exploit defensive tendencies. So if a defense likes to do certain things, Coach Riley's offense can set it up to get them out of their comfort zone, make them do things differently. What they think they see isn't really happening. And the types of routes that he likes to use with the wide receivers, it opens up the field. It creates mismatches. Think of when you're watching USC's wide receivers, one of those 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, think of those rub routes. All of a sudden you think one guy's going this way and another guy's going that way, but it's actually the opposite. What makes Coach Riley's passing game so dangerous, so hard to defend? It's really his ability to blend, all these different concepts into like a single play, and it's supposed to allow the quarterback to read defenses quickly, effectively, especially when you're looking at different, multiple types of coverages. In theory, it's supposed to make the passing game really dynamic, really hard to defend, unpredictable. Number two, here's the other main point, and I know I bring it up all the time regarding USC's offense running the ball more. However, I think, let's be fair here. Coach Riley's offense, it does use a really strong running game. And if you compare it to other, and I'm using finger quotes, air raid type of offensive philosophies, like compare it to Mike Leach, his mentor. Mike Leach's air raid doesn't run the ball a lot. I don't know if it's because they couldn't. but they didn't often average 100 yards per game, whereas Coach Riley's offenses, they average into 140, 150. First year at USC, I think they averaged 170 yards on the ground. That's a good number, especially when you throw the ball as much as Coach Riley's offense does. I mean, Woody Marks carried the ball really effectively for USC last year. And then before that, you had Marshawn Lloyd and Austin Jones and Travis Dye. The latter of those three, of those running backs, as far as Travis and Austin and Marshawn, they had Caleb Williams at quarterback. So when you have a quarterback that's willing to do the run part of the RPO, run pass option, the running game works a lot better, especially when the quarterback is, supposed to be part of that running game. You're supposed to incorporate, parts of your quarterback's skill set into that running game. Don't forget about the H-back. Coach Riley used that a lot at Oklahoma. We're still trying to find that H-back that can handle that role to help elevate USC's offense. Excuse me. The H-back, it's so hard to defend because you don't really know what they're going to do. It's lined up in the backfield, and it can play that role of tight end. It could play blocking back. It could all of a sudden block and then leak out and run a wheel route type of concept. There's a lot you can do with the H-back. And that's going to keep the opposing linebackers, occupied, right? When you have a linebacker having to cover in space, that's typically something they don't like to do. Again, you're getting them out of their comfort zone. And then the third really positive aspect of Coach Riley's offense, it's tempo. That's what creates a lot of challenges for the opposition. Now, usually, Coach Riley's offense moves at a relatively fast pace, and it can tend to overwhelm defenses, especially when you get that quick ball movement and especially when it's executing the way it's supposed to execute. You got that tempo, no huddle. When the offense is humming the way it's supposed to, like a fine, well-oiled machine, defenses are at a disadvantage. Again, especially when the offense can stay on the field and you're not constantly substituting. You're not draining the play clock, which is something I did criticize a little bit or a lot based on last year's view from where I was sitting. Now, there are some negatives as well. Again, the yin and the yang. One thing that gets overlooked often is how well does the offense coexist with your own defense. Again, Coach Riley's offense likes to use tempo, likes to use pace. So while that's a strength, it also becomes a weakness. It makes your own defense vulnerable. This is what I was talking about. Working into, they might not be the same, but they work together, the yin and the yang. I mean, how many times last year did we see USC's offense stumble, quick series, 3 and outs, and all of a sudden the defense is going right back on the field again? It happened too many times. And when you don't have the depth, all of a sudden you understand, you get a better understanding of why USC's defense, while it was good last year, tended to fade as the game wore on. The offense wasn't doing its part. They weren't scoring as many points. And when you're, doing 3 and outs or you're having quick series, maybe you get 1 first down and then all of a sudden the next part of that drive, it's like, all right, well, we stalled. Here comes Eddie Czaplisky again. You don't want to keep putting your defense back on the field so often. So yeah, quick possessions. If you have your defense doing a lot of, being on the field a lot, that's going to cause problems. Riley's offense in the past, it also, and this isn't just his offense, but it struggles against defenses that have really good dominant front lines. Michigan, last year, that comes to mind, right? You want to go back to 2023 when USC was in South Bend. They destroyed USC's offensive line in that game. Caleb Williams had 3 interceptions and a fumble? By far his worst game in college, I would imagine. I don't think he's had a worse game than that. So teams that can generate, consistent pressure, if you can do it with 3 or 4 guys, you're going to disrupt the rhythm, and it's just going to make that defense, the opposing defense, is that much better. But this is an O-line issue more than anything. And again, it's not specific to Coach Riley's scheme. Anytime you have a dominant defensive line that creates pressure, I really don't think it matters what the type of offense is. They're doing something right. And then, as far as Coach Riley's offense, the success, it hinges on elite quarterback play. Last year, the production of quarterback, it wasn't elite. I guess that's the best way to describe it. It wasn't up to the standard that we've grown accustomed to with Coach Riley and his quarterbacks. 3 Heisman winners, guys who show up as runner-up. He's been able to find what the quarterback does best and bring that out on the field. Last year, we never really saw that. So it wasn't elite. It was, I guess, if I want to be politically correct, being kind, it was inconsistent. So his quarterback, it requires not just good decision making. That decision making has to happen quickly, and that was an issue. We're hoping that in 2025, Jayden Mayaba is ready to take that next step at the quarterback position. But by far, the positives severely outweigh the negatives. And as I mentioned, I think Jayden should be ready to should be able to take the next step in his development this year. Saying all the right things. He knows that he's the guy this year. And as long as he maintains that neutral mindset, we'll see what happens. We know USC's defense, it's supposed to be really good. In fact, it's going to give in 2025, I think Coach Riley's offense can lean on his defense. Let me tell you what some of the things to look for this year 2 of D'Anton Lynn's defense being installed. And then when we get to the third segment, I want you to think about this, because marquee games, how many marquee wins has Lincoln Riley had since he's been at USC? We're going to talk about that. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, like me. whether it's your 401k, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface. You can do this on your laptop. You can do it on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally, you can feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. There's one fantastic feature I think you're going to love. It's going to help you save money. When you link all of your accounts to Monarch, you're going to immediately find out if you have some subscriptions that you weren't even aware of. You know what? If you do, you're not using them, don't pay for them. Canceling those subscriptions alone is probably going to save you a lot of money every month. I'm telling you, don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. How good was USC's defense in 2024, considering, remember, take into account what we all saw in 2023 and if you want to forget 2023, I get it. Everybody does. But 2024, how good was USC's defense considering the talent that was available? There was some talent, just not enough of it. A reminder, USC's defense last year was credited with giving up 24 points per game. That was down 10 points. In 2023, they were allowing 34 points per game. And I'll remind everybody again, plug in those advanced metrics. Take away all those pick sixes that USC's quarterbacks threw. That number now drops to 21 points per game. That is what I consider a fantastic defense. That is the only stat I care about. Yeah, you look at yards allowed, given up, rushing, passing. At the end of the day, what are we looking at? The scoreboard. And you're just looking who's given up the fewest amount of points and who scored the most at the end of the day. That's it. So I know a lot of you like to throw the statistical numbers at me. Well, USC's defense was 77th with this and 80th with this. Come on. Try and be a little bit more nuanced. Big picture. How good was USC's defense on third downs last year? They were fantastic. That's one area where you grade and gauge how good a defense can be. Well, some of you say, well, they weren't good on fourth down. How many times was USC trying to get the stop on fourth down? Yeah, it happened. But, that's not – you want to get your defense off the field after 3 downs. And USC was really good in that aspect. All right, with that said, how much better will the defense be in 2025 with more depth, more talent? Look, USC has significantly bolstered their defensive line. I mean, significantly. Been talking about this the entire offseason. In fact, before spring camp even started. That's how far back we're going to go with this. You brought in the transfers, Keyshawn Silver, Kentucky, Jamal Jarrett, Georgia. 700 pounds to bolster the interior of that defensive line where you needed help right away. So you add those guys. Then you have the veterans returning. Devin Tompkins. The coaches cannot keep his name out of their mouth. At this point, if he's not putting up All-American numbers, it might be a disappointment, even though he has a great season. Anthony Lucas, another guy. Kobe Pepe. Braylon Shelby. Those are the veterans. Then you got second-year guys like Cam Fountain. You got the freshman phenom, Jakeem Stewart. The defensive line is bigger. It's deeper. It can absorb some attrition. They are expected to be a team strength this season. And just because that depth is going to help the defense, it's also going to help the defense coexist with Coach Riley's offense. Again, the yin and the yang. How do they work together? That relationship 2024 had some issues. Something else to look for. Obviously, everyone's going to be watching this one. The return of Eric Gentry. He missed most of last season after he gave himself a concussion in that game against Penn State. Very benign play. Whistle blew. He was running towards the pile, but didn't want to jump on the pile. Jumped over, landed on his head. Ouch. Concussion, out for the year. Eric Gentry's athleticism, you combine that with the other linebackers like Desmond Stevens and Jaden Walker, Anthony Beavers, Amir Robinson, who's coming over from Penn State. All of a sudden now you've got the depth at linebacker, and you got Rob Ryan coaching those guys up. Something to look for is that group all of a sudden having more than just Eric Gentry as a playmaker. Having the linebacker room, be a strength, that's been missing at USC for a while now. Think back to some of the linebackers who have played at USC. It's been a while since people said, "Hey, have you seen the Trojans linebacker group? You gotta worry about them." You might be singing that song this year, hopefully. But when Eric's not on the field, his absence, it plays a huge role in the defense's success or the lack thereof. You noticed a huge drop-off when he was not available last year. Penn State took advantage of it. Ty Warren, their tight end, he went ham. I mean, he literally was a one-man wrecking crew. And without Gentry on the field, they were able to take advantage of his athleticism. Talked about gut feelings. I have a gut feeling that I think the secondary is going to be a lot better in 2025. And that's not a knock because I thought Jalen Smith last year was fantastic. Kamari Ramsey, he was coming along. But you have Kamari Ramsey coming back. And you have these three guys, I think, are going to make the difference. You're bringing in guys who have experience. Bishop Fitzgerald, the safety from North Carolina State. DJ Harvey, ball hawk, coming home. Was at San Jose State last year. Had what, 5 interceptions? I think at least 5. Sorry, I didn't look up the exact number, but I feel comfortable saying it was 5+. And then you have Chasen Johnson, second-year player, comes over from at cornerback from Central Florida. Coach Trovon Reed is very familiar with him. I think these guys, because of their aggressive play, their aggressive style, you're going to get more turnovers created. You're going to get intimidators in that secondary. If these guys, if the corners can support on the run, I think everything's going to be just fine on the defensive side of the ball. Look, just having a deeper defensive line that can rotate, stay fresh. You combine that with your playmakers at linebacker, the ball hawkers in the secondary. Get some more, just continue to do, more 3 and outs. As I said, last year, USC was really good getting off the field on 3rd down. So continue to do that, create more turnovers. All that's going to help minimize the defense being on the field longer than they should be. I think this is going to be critical considering what USC struggled with last year. They got to show that, last year was last year. Yeah, we weren't able to sustain in those tight games in the 4th quarter, especially on the road. You got to be able to flip that switch so you're not fading at the end of games. So you got D'Anton Lynn, he's back 2nd year. You're focused in. You understand how the big conference works now. It's a little bit more physical than what maybe you were accustomed to in the Big 12 or in the Pac-12. So if that defense can transform itself and complement, and maybe even outshine Coach Riley's offense, I think we're setting the stage for a really good 2025. Now, 2025 will be dependent on how many marquee wins can USC pull off. We've been talking about this a lot lately. What will it take for USC to have a good year, record-wise, get to the playoffs? We know 9-3 is for me, it's the floor. On yesterday's episode of Locked On USC, I told you how you get to 10-2 and get to the playoffs. So when you're done watching this episode of Locked On USC, if you missed yesterday's, shame on you. You know how you don't miss an episode? If you're watching on YouTube, you click that bell notification button. You become a subscriber. It's quick, it's easy, it's free. And I know you like the show. It's where you're coming back. Smash that thumbs up. All right, next segment, we're going to talk about marquee games, marquee wins, where they're going to come from. So we're heading into year 4, Coach Riley. What is the program's marquee win since he's been the head coach? Notre Dame at the Coliseum in 2022? Pretty good, right? What about USC's win against LSU last year in Las Vegas to open the season? I'd put that in the marquee win category. Corey Foreman, remember his interception to beat UCLA at the Rose Bowl? That would also happen in 2022. I mean, is that it? Are those the marquee wins? I asked this question because I think the Trojans need a couple of, and I'm using finger quotes, marquee, significant, big-time wins that is going to catch the nation's attention. Last year, losses at Michigan. You have the 2 losses at home to Penn State and Notre Dame. Those are opportunities missed. I mean, just those two games alone, if USC wins those games, you go from what? 6 wins to 8 wins. That makes a huge difference. I mean, last year USC could have been 9-3 without the losses to Minnesota and Maryland and Washington, just by winning those games I was talking about. That makes a difference. I mean, you lost to Minnesota, you lost to Maryland, you lost to Washington. Those losses will be they're acceptable if you're 9-3, because you have wins against the top of the conference, Penn State, semifinalists in the playoffs, the national championship runner-up, Notre Dame. But you got to win those, especially at home. In 2025, USC's first chance at a marquee win, it's not going to happen until week 5 when they travel to play Illinois. Then again, what happens? How much luster comes off of that game if Indiana happens to beat the Fighting Illini the week before? That game's going to be in Bloomington, Indiana. What are the ramifications if an undefeated USC loses to a one-loss Illinois team? Bueller? I think the Illini stay in the top 25 if they lose at Indiana the week before. Unless they're just really bad in that game where they, the wheels fall off. They don't look like the 12th ranked team in the country. I mean, Indiana is ranked 20th preseason in the AP poll. And look, Indiana's schedule before Illinois shows up, I'm going to use the word pathetic again. I'm not sure how much Indiana's going to move up in the polls. I mean, they open up with Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. Hey, look, Indiana, again, won 10 games last year, went to the playoffs. They're considered the top 20 team preseason, according to the AP poll. But how much credit are you going to give them going 3-0 heading into week 4 against Illinois? I mean, even if they're dominant against those teams, how far are you going to move them up? I know it's all dependent on what happens with the teams in front of them. Still, I'm not giving credit to any team. I don't care what your name is, what the logo on the helmet is, when you're playing Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State to open your season. Pathetic. Now, after the Illinois game, USC, they have 3 more chances. And in fact, 3 games in a row where they can get that win that, I don't know, that deserves some extra flowers. A curtain call, so to speak. You're at home against Michigan. How good will Michigan be, though? Remember, they will have already played on the road in Oklahoma as well as in Lincoln, Nebraska. USC then gets a bye week after the Michigan game, Notre Dame. Then they get another bye week, and they go to Nebraska. And then you have Oregon later in November. So there are other opportunities to get marquee wins. Still, those games at Notre Dame and at Oregon will be a little tougher than at Illinois and at Nebraska. But they're all ranked teams. Well, except for Nebraska. Nebraska could be ranked by the time USC gets there. They also have a pretty cush schedule leading up. So we'll see. But yeah, there you go. If you're looking for some marquee wins, there's plenty of opportunities. But USC's had some of those opportunities already since Coach Riley's been the head coach. They just haven't taken advantage of them. So I think we got to go back to year 1, right? You went 11-3. You had the wins against Notre Dame. You had that dramatic win against UCLA to preserve the chance to go to the playoffs. USC, unfortunately, lost Caleb Williams in that game when he pulled his hamstring. Anyways, going down a rabbit hole there. There has not been a lot of marquee wins. I mean, even the game against Texas A&M, I guess you can kind of push a chair up to the table with that one, but probably not. So it is. It's Notre Dame. It's LSU. It's UCLA. That's it. Got to do better than that. Do you have any other games where you'd say, you know what, USC, let's categorize that as a marquee win? If you do, let me know. Hit me up in the comments section. I'll be back with another episode tomorrow. That's what we do around here 5 times a week, every day. Locked On USC, your team every day. And when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen, don't forget, head on over there to wearesc.com. That's the other place I hang out at. A lot of great written content. Scott Schrader's throwing up some good info. Eric McKinney always throws up good info. Chris Arledge chimes in every now and then. And don't forget, we got our Inside the Trojan Huddle podcast. That's up and available for you to watch. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.